And that is the basic shape in that bit of metal. Is I got the chainsaw out and I just cut the top off. Hey everyone, welcome to another Wreck to Resto video. On today's episode, I'm going to carry on with the rust repairs on the HG subframe. It's been a little while since I've done anything on this, so I'm going to get stuck back into it. I'm going to try and get this one finished so I can get it blasted and put into epoxy. I'll just show you the couple areas that I've been working on, and I'll show you the process of pretty well how I make these rust repair panels. So as you can see, these corners are rusted out pretty bad. So the front tie bar's rusted out, and there's also a bit of rust on the back side as well. So I've got to repair both corners. So the back side of this one's not too bad, so I only have to do the front section. So as you can see here, I've made this section up. So I will basically show you the process of how I went about it and how I'm going to make this section again. So that one, I've just made it so it fits over the top. So I still need a little bit of adjusting to make it fit perfect, but it's getting pretty close. So this, I'll just mark a line through here. This will get cut off and it'll get butt welded onto there, and that'll repair that rusty section. So you can see here, what I've actually done is I've drawn over it with a permanent marker, and then I've used a scribe to scribe a line over the top. And then what I'll do is I'm going to cut on that side of the line with the grinder, and then remove that whole section. And then what I can do is weld the new piece on, butt weld through here. I'll drill out the spot welds, and then it will basically plug weld the whole way around. And then that'll be that repair done. So to start off, we need to figure out the size of the piece of metal that I need to cut out to make the rust repair panel. So what I need to do is measure the widest point. So that is 17, plus I need to allow enough to go around the corner. So I'll cut that one off, I'll call it 180, and then I need it to be, the whole thing's about 100 plus the lips, so I'll probably got to cut that one off at 110. So if I cut it off at 180 by 110, it should give me more than enough material to make the section. So this is just 1.2 mil zinc anneal. I've just quickly deburred the edges with the flapper disc so that there's no sharp edges when I go to work it. I want to be able to transfer this radius here onto a bit of sheet metal. So there's a couple of different ways you can do it. You can put a bit of masking tape on there, or you can just use a bit of cardboard. So I'm just going to roughly cut out what I think I need, and then I can just fine tune it. That is actually pretty close. So I can trim that off there. So if I transfer that radius there onto my bit of sheet metal, all of this area here is where I've got to shrink the metal. Now when I hit this, I want to be hitting on this side. So I need to transfer this over the other way. And I also need to measure how much material I need at the top. If I go 20 mil, it should give me more than enough. And I need to allow enough here to be able to stretch around the corner as well, which you'll see shortly. So this part of the metal is where I've got to basically beat all through here to create like a bowl-like shape. And then that will basically turn into something like that. So I'll take you outside in a second. I'll show you what I've used to achieve that. I've got a plastic hammer here. So this is a pretty heavy hammer. These normally have a slight radius on them, but it didn't have enough. So on the end that was a bit average, I've actually ground more of a radius onto the hammer, and I'll take it outside and I'll show you how I use this to make that. Got myself an old dead tree stump here. So what I did is I got the chainsaw out and I just cut the top off to get myself back to some nice hard timber. And then with the bar of the chainsaw, I've put a bit of a groove in it. So up here, it's a lot tighter radius, and then it sort of tapers out to a lot less out here. So I've actually got two different radiuses that I can work with the stump. And then after that, I just got the grinder and I just smoothed it out a bit more just to give myself a smooth finish. And I'll show you what you can do with a bit of timber, with a radius on like that, soft-headed hammer, and how quick it is to shrink the metal. So what I'm going to do is just work my way along here, and I'm just going to put a fair bit of shape into it pretty quickly. So you can see after a few hits how it's already starting to tuck the metal. So that's basically the metal shrinking in as I'm moving it here. And where you don't want as much radius, you can come back to the other side of the stump and then just slowly work that. So as you can see, that's already shifted it a fair bit. So I'll still need to move it a little bit more to get the shape that I need, but that's a pretty good start. So I learnt this little technique off a guy called Carl Fisher. His YouTube channel is called Make It Custom, and he uses this to make motorcycle tanks and all sorts of things. So it's a very handy little tip. And to be able to move a fair bit of metal pretty quickly, and obviously it's dirt cheap, you don't need pull maxes and all that sort of stuff. Obviously that'd be nice, but pretty handy little trick. The next step after putting the bowl shape in it is I've got to be able to tip this edge so it's flat. So there's a combination of tools that I use for that. It's mainly just hammer and dollies. So I've just got a normal panel beating hammer. I've sanded the face pretty smooth and I've just hit it with a polisher. I've found when you've got clean faces on your hammers, it leaves a lot better finish on the metal. If you've got a really rough finish, obviously it's going to transfer that rough finish to the metal. So both hammers I've tidied up. I've got a couple of just real basic cheap dollies. The steel bench obviously is a nice solid bench, so it's handy to be able to hit edges over. And the other thing that I've got that works really well is a short piece of railway track. And I've just put a bit of a radius on one corner so that if I need to put a sharp radius on something, I've got that corner that I can use. So that in the stump, when I was hitting this with the soft hammer, it's basically forcing the metal up and crimping it. So that's called shrinking, because the metal's obviously getting thicker and smaller. What I'm doing now is by hitting it metal on metal, it's actually stretching it. So I'm actually, this piece here, I'm actually stretching to get more of a crown on it. So these sort of shapes, it's just a combination of stretching, shrinking, and forming. Forming is basically when you're taking metal and you're just bending it. It's not actually stretching it or shrinking it. So as you can see, this radius here is more than what I've got here. So I need to take this back out to the stump and work just this piece here to get it so it's at the same radius as that. So whenever you're making pieces like this, it's a lot of back and forward, and just finessing it until you get it right. So it's getting a bit closer now, so you can see that radius follows around. So all of these little hammer marks I have to go through afterwards and planish all these out. But I'm just trying to get the rough shape in it first. So there's still a little bit too much curvature that way. So I just need to keep stretching this edge out just to try and flatten this one off. And that is the basic shape in that bit of metal. So this dome shape is what I did in the shrinking stump. I made all that, and then I've basically just fine-tuned the whole panel just with basic hammers and dollies. So you can still see that this needs a bit of work, and if I was to make this fit onto the subframe, I'd need to put this lip back this way. So you can see that how that sits like that. This lip folds over, and then this corner, there's a bit more work here. But as you can see there, like that didn't take very long at all. That was probably only 15 minutes work to take a bit of flat sheet metal and put that much shape in it. And that's pretty close to that. It's obviously still needs a little bit of work to make it fit the car, but you can see just with basic hand tools, bit of thought, bit of timber, I'm actually going to make myself a proper shrinking stump that will sit in the shed. So I'm going to get a couple bits of jarrah. You need to use hardwood because obviously if you use softwood it just dents too easily and it will crack. But I'm going to make one out of jarrah that actually stands up at bench height. So when I'm making other panels and things like that, I can do it in the shed. But I just wanted to make that one outside because I had the stump there and I just wanted to prove the theory. But as you can see, pretty easy repair. So yeah, I'll get these ones welded onto the subframe now. I'll get the rust repairs finished on the subframe and we'll keep progressing on the ute. So the ute has been blasted now, it's been put in epoxy, so we'll see that back in the shed very, very soon. Obviously as soon as I've got it, I'll do a video, I'll show you guys what's left of it. Obviously the blasting has unearthed a fair bit of rust, but at least we know exactly what we're working with now. So you'll see all that on a future episode of Recto Resto. Appreciate the support guys, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks again.